Hey everybody, welcome to the Clydesdale Fitness and Friends. My name is Scott Switzer. I am your host. I am the Clydesdale. We love to do fitness, and these are my friends. I have my typical co-host of Amy and Kat, and we have a special guest tonight, Jenny Borda. So glad you could join us, Jenny.
Thanks for having me.
And so just like phase one of the games, this is our Clydesdale After Dark edition, recapping the games every night right after they end. And there goes Amy with her wine. Mm-hmm. Cheers. And so it was quite a day at the Aromas, California, or whatever, Woodland Hills. They started this morning off with the 2007 Reload, bright and early in the morning. And that was the 1,500 meter row into 10 bar muscle ups, 5 rounds of about 10 bar muscle ups, and 7 shoulder to overhead. I think shoulders got taxed way more than anybody expected.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on that first event?
Well, Matt was icing his forearms afterwards, so I think he got it in a little bit of a different spot than everybody else. But I was kind of bummed to see Noah do his typical, came out off the rower first, and then ended up, I think, in last.
It has seemed like he'd learned something, but then today it didn't seem like that. It seems like he'd matured.
Yeah,
I mean, first event, getting the jitters out, maybe, but I was bummed.
Yeah, last year you thought he had learned his lesson by being more consistent throughout the week. And today he went back to the old habits. I think the big surprise for me was the two legends, Matt and Tia, did not go unbroken. And the reason I say that is I tuned into Ben Smith this morning. At 5 a.m., he did this workout completely unbroken and did it in 13 minutes. Matt's time was 13:05, but he had to break it up, and he actually stopped and waited because he had such a big lead, but he still missed the last push jerk.
Right. I think that volume definitely caught up to them, especially in those last couple rounds. I mean, it happened to Carrie Pierce. It would happen to Brooke. It happened to Katrin. I mean, it was happening to everybody that last round, that volume caught up to them.
Yeah,
I think
Brooke
there's also she fell apart. I think there's also a little bit, like for Matt and Tia, like there's this little bit of like, it's my last rep. And so maybe like, not that you don't go as hard, but it's not like they look like they struggled because Tia missed her last one too. It's not like they struggled and they look like they were about to fail. And it's just that, oh, this is my last one. And you kind of get it up. And it's just not maybe as aggressive as you needed to be because you were just like ready to be like done and cross the finish line. Because I don't think either of them had to break. Like Matt could have done that last round.
You're kind of known as a gymnastics expert in our local area. Mm-hmm. And so how taxing is that bar muscle up on the same shoulder muscles that you're going to use for the push jerk?
It depends how you bar muscle up. If you're able to use your lats a ton and catch a little bit with straighter arms, you're not doing as much of a press. But like Tia does a pretty vertical bar muscle up. I mean, it's efficient, but she always like bends and presses through. Matt is very similar in his bar muscle up technique, doesn't come like around the bar quite as much, like maybe Katrin would. And so then you have a little bit more of a press out. Like for me, I would say a bar muscle up never felt taxing on pressing muscles.
Right, because it's a big pull. I mean,
it should be a big,
most
like
of it is a
press
pull.
Down. Yep. Yeah. But you watch them and like when the people that come up and they get that elbow over early, even though it locks out really quick, that's still a lot of a pressing motion. And that's what both Matt and Tia do to do their bar muscle ups.
And Brooke really over accentuates that press at the top.
Yeah, I really like Brooke, but she moves so inefficiently. Like I like her as a person, I like her as an athlete, I root for her, but she doesn't have she just doesn't, if you watch her move in general, she has not a lot of great core activity when she does stuff. So I would say that in general, she has to use a lot more, whether it's her arms or her legs, depending on what she's doing, because her core is fairly inefficient.
That's a great assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the other big surprise was Justin Medeiros, kind of coming out and staying with Matt pretty much throughout that whole event. And that actually becomes a theme of the day a little bit, with more than just Justin, but someone actually staying with Matt during an event. So we moved to the second event, which is the cornhole bag up the hill.
Corn sack.
Corn bag.
The corn sack.
Corn sack. I don't know.
They probably would have loved a cornhole bag.
That would have been much lighter.
Right. Much easier. The top of that hill, I think, was straight up.
Yeah.
Like a ladder without rungs. And it blew some people up bad.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the Legends finished that event in first place. With and Tia finished that in like, no big deal, just grabbing a glass of water. Everybody else was on the floor dying. Thoughts on the corn sack hill run?
I was just a little bit bummed for Justin, though. I mean, because he was like there at the beginning, and then right there at the end, he got taken over. It's like he gave up when he saw the finish line there, kind of a little premature.
And I don't think he was aware of how close Adler was behind him. I mean, I was screaming at the TV when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, probably a rookie mistake, but Jeff Adler just edged him out at the very end because he could see him and knew he could, turn on the gas a little bit.
And poor Haley with the bad balance on her back to drop the bag and have to then re-pick it up. And actually she tried to carry it like a football.
Yeah. She carried across the finish line that way.
I mean, luckily though, that the place where she did that was so narrow that no one could get around her anyway. Like if she was going to fall, she's going to tumble on top of Carrie and Brooke.
Yeah, she was right there on Katrin's tail though, and may have been able to make a move.
Yeah.
And that cost her all of that with the drop of the bag. And again, Noah disappoints in an event too. What last place finish? 2 straight last place finishes to start the weekend. As the only other experienced athlete besides Matt, you would expect him to be able to compete and to start the weekend with 2 fifth place finishes. Not good.
I mean, I think we talked about this though. Noah feeds off the crowd, right? I mean, there's no crowd, there's no music. You can hear everybody breathing. Like it's a completely different environment. And if you're not accustomed to that, and if, the music and the people are what gives you that energy, this is not going to be a great environment for him the next 3 days.
So then we move into my favorite event, the CrossFit Total. That's always a fun event for me to watch. I think a surprising result on the men's side with Jeffrey Adler a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Matt won the squat and the strict press pretty easy. And then Adler killed him in the deadlift enough to come back and win that event. And I think Matt thought he got him because he looked at Adler and kind of pointed at him and pumped the chest and
100%. He thought that he was going over his score with his judge, and they were adding up the points. And I think he just added wrong as he was anticipating how much he had to deadlift. And it was probably just a calculation error that cost him that win. Cause I'm sure I don't know if he probably could have added more weight and done just fine. Cause that last deadlift didn't look too hard for him. So he's probably kicking himself a little bit for that. And who knows if that was, O'Keefe's issue or Matt's issue, but I think they dropped the ball on that one. I'd be curious to see if, he talks about it at all afterwards. Because, the way he acted, he clearly thought he beat Adler.
Well, yeah, even when they were looking at the scorecard afterwards, Adler's over there by them looking over it too with him like, what's up?
Yep. Yeah, he was surprised. 567-pound deadlift. What the freak? That was impressive.
Yeah. Big win for Adler.
Yeah.
Huge
and
win for Adler.
I think we were a little bit surprised with Justin, right? I mean, with him winning that front squat, I think we thought he was going to put up some big weight. And with those long arms, that strict press.
You can't strict press.
Yeah, he was really not impressive.
But I got to say, 175-pound strict press. I mean, that's average in our gym.
Right.
Like, that was really shocking.
I was surprised.
I've blown away.
It also shows how efficient then he was in event 1, because he didn't really, it's not like he failed a bunch of reps on push jerks. And so that really proves like his raw strength in pressing really isn't great, and how efficiently he's able to handle that volume, or when he actually gets to use technique.
Right. He gets to use his body to help him out.
Yep.
Can we just talk about one thing about Justin real quick, is that I kept looking at him thinking he looks like a young David Hasselhoff.
Especially with those sunglasses.
The hair. Yeah.
That's what it was. It was the sunglasses and the hair together. And I was like, he does. I feel like I'm watching the Hoff right here at the CrossFit Games.
Hey, don't hassle the Hoff.
Don't hassle the Hoff. All right.
So then we move over to the women's side, and tight race right down to the wire, just like in 2018. Tia and Brooke, toe to toe, but Tia never looked like she struggled on any of the lifts.
Yeah, I mean, her knees definitely come in on her squat, but like they were saying, like if your knees can come in and you can produce that amount of weight on your squat, but they did definitely come in.
Brooke's knees did too. I mean, they both have that little bit of valgus when it gets heavy, and I mean, they're strong. They're strong enough that they're not going to hurt themselves.
Yeah, but I mean, what is it? Do they need to be working on those glutes more, or?
I don't know.
I personally think when people do that really bad at it, like especially really good athletes that are strong like that, they like, this goes for Brooke for sure. Like I've already talked about how I think she doesn't have good efficient core stability. I think her adductors just work so hard to help her stand up that she can't control anything else. Like she's using her adductors to stabilize so much that like they're helping stand up the squat. And so that's good to have good, strong adductors like that. It's just hard when they overpower everything else.
Right. It's just like an unbalanced muscle recruitment.
Yep.
And for our audience, just so they know, Jenny is a doctor of physical therapy. So she's very, very aware of like all the different body parts and what works well. And just want to make sure they know your background when you talk about those things.
Yes.
That you are definitely an expert.
Your inner thighs, your inner thigh muscles, your groins.
And so it ended up that Tia outlifted Brooke. And I think everything kind of was predictable from that there was those two and the other three kind of battling for the top half and the bottom half. Poor Haley. I just feel so bad. At 19, she just doesn't have that raw strength yet to be able to compete with them. And her technique, I think, is better than some of the other athletes. She just doesn't have the raw strength to back it up.
Yeah, I mean, she was just making sure that she beat Katrin in that event. That was sort of damage control for her.
I felt for Katrin. I really felt like that would be, as someone who, has competed and had to lift and also had some back things. I think that's so scary. Like just to manage that. Who knows like what she's lifted or what she's done. But, she had that back injury this year. And I do think sometimes, I know like, I don't like back squatting because of my back, and I don't know how much she does it at all. But I just think that could be so scary. Like you want to do well enough, and then it felt okay, so you want to go up. But I even felt like she looked like a little like just nervous. Like, do I want to do this? So that would just on that stage suck to feel that way. Like not trust your body in certain instances.
When I've had the back injury too, and for me, deadlift is the scariest thing in the world. My deadlift is so low right now because I'm just afraid to go up
to do it
on different things. So
so that's what I was thinking about, like with Noah Olson on his deadlift, with the jackhammering. But even once he got the lift and he received the good rep, like even the way he dumped it, it made me look like, like his back looked a little bit strained when he dumped the barbell.
Yeah, and he had those back spasms a couple of weeks before stage 1 of the CrossFit Games. So who knows what was going through his head too, in terms of, worrying about that sort of coming back. Because that, if that comes back, he's not competing. I mean, he indicated that he could barely, like get out of bed when that happened. So yeah, that kind of stuff is scary. It's more front
Very.
squats for me than back squats, but
Really?
Yeah, me too.
Ooh,
yeah,
back
well, it's
squats
my
for me.
mid back, not my low
Okay.
back. It's my mid back, and it goes every
Yeah.
time I front squat.
When it rounds.
Super fun.
Sounds like it.
So then we go to the
Yeah.
sprint event of the sprint handstand walk.
That was
And
cool.
what I thought was cool about the men's side is the two strategies of Matt Fraser and Justin Medeiros, and how they finished so close, yet with two
Yeah.
completely different strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Going to turn it over to you guys to get your thoughts as well.
There is
Well, let's explain what it was, right? So
Unbel-
Matt went pretty much
unbroken.
all the way until
90
you
yards.
know
He
he
went
had
90
to
yards.
break with like the last 10 yards he had to break, and Justin did like the first 20 or 30 yards and then was going like 5 yards at a time. Was kicking up, walking, coming down, kicking up, walking, coming down the entire time. It's kind of like Armin's single toe to bar theory, for like toe to bar workouts. He kept the pace, and I was worried that he was going to like get no repped a bunch of times, because I saw like his foot had to be behind the line, and that was a little
it's
sketchy.
like you could get your hands over the line. They've done this at regionals too. Your hands had to be over the line, right? And then you had to kick up behind the line, but that didn't mean you couldn't reach past where your hands got to.
Right.
And so there's nothing more frustrating than that as an athlete who is a pretty good handstand walker, to look at someone next to you who's not a good, at least these were fairly big sections, like when we've done regionals, it's been 5 feet and people could kind of like dive their little hands out and like do that. So frustrating, because they're not even really handstand walking. At least he was. But I think that I do think he gained some because he was able to reach out further every time. But that's part of the game, right? Is being more efficient and figuring out what you can get away with and what you can do. So it worked for him. And had he had to go longer chunks, who knows if he could have been second, right? He was second, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I love that perspective, Jenny, because you've competed on that big stage. So like how you're trying to game those things and get every advantage you can.
Yep. And I think there's very different kinds of athletes, honestly, and you can see it in some of them. There's athletes who, Matt really uses pretty good technique. He's going to always try to like be smarter going broken. Or you think about Rich and how he always had a great strategy, right? But it was never a strategy that you were like, ooh, is that cheating? Like, I'm not sure what that is. Whereas things where you're kind of like, ooh, if I can step down and reach out 3 feet further than I kick down, like, does that save me? There's some athletes that you never see do things like that. Like, hit the highest part of a squat that's still parallel because they don't want to travel as far, or things like that. Like, there's some athletes you see do that all the time, and then there's some athletes that never walk that line. And I was definitely a never walk that line.
Tell you who they are.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely
won't.
never walked that line because I didn't train that way, and that's not how I've ever been. But you can watch people that do that. So it'll be interesting to see, because I haven't watched a lot of Justin Medeiros. I watched stage 1 some. But I'm interested to see if like you see a few more little things like that from him.
When he's 21.
And I was noticing that with Brooke Wells though too. Like, she came down on her handstand walk, which she did amazing. On that, I was more expecting it to be like a Katrin and a Carrie Pierce kind of competition. And
I was shocked with Katrin.
Yeah.
I really thought, like, after watching Katrin handstand walk, I really thought she feels terrible. Like, her back must really hurt. Something really hurts. Like, she can't do like she normally does. Like, thought that was shocking. And then she ran so well. We haven't talked about that event yet. But then I was like, oh, maybe she's not hurt. Maybe she just sucked at it today.
To crush, not just win, but to crush the handstand hold on stage 1 and to cap out on 100-yard handstand walk.
I think
I think they're different though. I think
they are.
holding
but she's
a
done
handstand
really well in handstand walk events.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was bizarre. But just as big a surprise
ended
to
up
me.
putting her in 4th, so she didn't cap out. Like, if you look at the leaderboard on that, she was in 4th. She did beat Tia. I saw that too, because I was like, wait, Kat didn't finish.
I think she had a chip malfunction on her on her.
So she did beat Tia.
I saw her finish.
Okay. Yeah, she was 4th.
Yeah.
Well, and
so she was 4th.
I was surprised with Brooke. I mean, Brooke killed that event.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't even anybody near her.
She did so well in that regional handstand event when we were in Nashville. So 2017, I think that was the year maybe. She some So I knew she, I've seen her do really good ones. But I agreed. I thought Katrin would do it.
So, and Tia finishing last. I don't think anybody expected that one. But they all are
harder
good
movements.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to say about Justin is, and about the gaming, he is 21. And so he's just trying to figure it out, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't even know what he doesn't know yet. And so I think any advantage he can get, he's trying to do right now. And hopefully that'll straighten out as he gets older and more into.
But Adam's a pretty seasoned coach though, right? I mean, he's coached that Fort Vancouver team for years.
He was at
so I would imagine he's getting, I imagine he's getting some direction from Adam as well. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see now that you bring that up, if he does try anything else over the course of the weekend.
I mean, it's smart. I'm not like I said, an athlete who doesn't ever do that. It is frustrating sometimes, but you can't ever fault someone for trying to ride that line of something that makes it easier, faster. And like I said, if he had to do 250-yard unbroken, who knows if he can do that. I don't know his true handstand walking capability. So Adam might have been like, you need to do this to do as well as you can, which is smart then.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then we finished with the trail run with a twist.
Oh my God.
I haven't gotten to see this one. Schweitzer's filled me in, but I didn't get to watch it yet because I was at the football game. So
they took off on the trail run, just typically like they always do, up that hill and into the woods. It was a little over 3 miles, 5K, about to the finish line. That is when Mr. Castro said, now do it in reverse. Matt Fraser flipped him off and didn't believe him while Justin took off. And then Matt decided, okay, I better go. Maybe he's telling the truth. And then they were the first two to kind of get to the end. And so they're heading back up the hill as others are coming down. And I think that's when they kind of got the clue. The thing that sucks for Matt and Justin is that they were an all-out sprint to the end.
Right.
When they got that news, none of the other runners that saw them come back up the hill went into that all-out sprint at the bottom where it kind of levels out. So I'll turn it over to you guys. What are your thoughts about how that all went? Because there was it made a dramatic change on one side of the competition, and on the other side, things kind of stayed the same.
Yeah. So my first reaction when Dave said, okay, now do it, but in reverse, I literally thought he meant they had to do it backwards. Like running backwards. And I was like, how is that going to work? And then because he said, do it reverse backwards. And I'm like, wait, what? How are they going to do that? So that was my very first impression.
That would have been really interesting to watch though.
Oh my God.
We'd still be watching it.
We'd still be watching. That would be awful though. Yeah, I was really just excited for Justin, giving Matt a little chase there. That was really cool to watch. And I don't know what happened to Tia. Tia was in the lead. Haley was right behind her. Katrin was in third. Brooke apparently went the wrong way at some point in time during the first half of the event. So I was afraid she was going to have a mental breakdown when she got to the first finish line and they told her she had to turn around and, do it again. But I didn't catch sort of how Katrin got ahead of everybody. So
yeah, I think that happened without any cameras on.
It just happened going up a hill. Yeah. She just is so good at that grind. Yep. She's just so good at that. I don't, this feels like crap and I'm going to keep pushing. And she just tracked him down.
And what was crazy is up until that last downhill, Medeiros was right, arm in arm with Matt.
Yeah.
And Haley was right behind Katrin going into the last downhill. Matt and Katrin showed those rookies, young people, how to run downhill.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the Justin
I don't know
Medeiros.
What happened. I was like, where did Justin go? There are going to be so many memes of them running down the hills. So many.
And Chase Ingram's wee. Yeah,
Oh,
the 21-year-old had no regard for his knees, his shins, his ankles, and Matt's running very like tight and down the hill.
Yeah, most 21-year-olds don't, I don't think.
No need
So
to.
I'm trying to think on the guys side, did them adding that whole nother loop, did that change the outcome at all? Did
don't
Noah
think
and
so.
Adler switch places?
It was Matt, Justin, Noah.
Yeah, so
Adler,
it did change
Noah,
because Adler was in,
Quant.
yeah, but Adler was in third place on the first lap because
Okay.
Adler was the first athlete that Matt and Justin
Oh, that's
passed.
right. He kind of
And I was waiting for them to sort of give them a clue, and they just sort of had their heads down and they're like, let's just go, don't tell them. So it did change a little bit, and greatly affected the ladies field.
Oh yeah,
because Carrie Pierce was giving Katrin all she wanted on that first lap.
Yeah.
And I thought Carrie was going to catch Tia on the last lap.
On the last lap, yeah.
And then Tia kind of pulled it together for the last little bit. But yeah, for a trail run, I didn't think it was going to be very exciting. And it turned out to be like really fun to watch because of how close the people were in the front and kind of pushing. And I was, my friend Sprinkles is here. I've talked about him on the show a couple times.
I think you should do a quick cameo.
Yeah, let's see them. Let's see him.
Sprinkles quick cameo.
Hey, buddy.
Hi, Sprinkles.
And so we were talking that in past games, these leaders didn't have anybody pushing them. And in this case, the worst you're going to finish is top 5. So why not shoot your shot? And at least, even if it's alternating, like Adler pushing Fraser on the CrossFit Total and Madero's pushing him on the trail run, these guys haven't been pushed this much. And it's just fun watching someone push them. Even though the point totals at the end of today are very wide on the men's side, at least Matt was pushed in a couple events where he couldn't just lay back and conserve energy for the next event.
Yeah.
And at least that'll be a little bit different test. So at the end of the day, Justin is behind Matt by 220 points, first to second place. Now Tia is only 75 points ahead of Haley.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a surmountable amount of points.
Now, because there's such a big point difference between the first and second and third, 75 can get wiped out in one event.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now the 220 is a little bit, that's going to take a while. But I don't think
we
that's
have
going to
10
happen.
events. 10 more events, right? So there's still, what's that? 1,000 points. 5 tomorrow and then 5 on Sunday.
I don't know if there's 5 on Sunday.
Yeah.
5 tomorrow and how many on Sunday? 3?
There's at least 2.
Right now it's listed as 3 and 2, right? Yeah.
Well, tomorrow, so Sunday's first event is event 11, and we know through event 8. So we know there's going to be 2 more tomorrow. So we know there's 5 tomorrow, and there's going to be how many for Sunday? 2?
They haven't announced
so far
much.
2's listed. They just have a sled sprint, and then something called Atlanta.
Okay, so let's assume there's 8. So that's 800 points, right? Versus whatever 15 times 8 is. So it's still, I mean, there's still going to be some movement potentially. If every one of those guys can beat Matt a couple times, there goes his lead.
Right. There's that.
Yeah. Well, and he has to get like second, he has to get like 4th or 5th place.
4th or 5th. Yeah.
Yeah. And Matt right now, Matt is 4 of 5 wins and 1 second place.
Yeah.
If he continues that, there's no hope for any of those guys. But I think what's interesting is we talked about pushing, and enough people have been pushing Tia, and her finishes when she didn't win were 3rd and 5th, there's some ground made up there. That's why Haley's much closer. Because
Mm-hmm.
if it just takes one or two fourth, fifth place finishes to not get very many points, and that can swing.
Yeah,
Right.
a second just isn't enough to really hurt him.
Yeah.
Right. So we go into tomorrow, and we've been talking for the last 2 weeks about the programming, and we haven't been very kind to the programming and how it was very sprinty, very quick. Now we see day one, and I think event one was better than I anticipated it to be. And event 5 definitely was not sprinty.
Mm-hmm.
That was a full hour out on that trail, 6 miles. How are we feeling going into tomorrow now with that lunge toes to bar workout that everybody's been attacking as just too simple after what they went through today?
I think it's going to hurt a lot more. I still don't think many people, if anybody's going to break it up. It's going to depend. I mean, I heard some good points from Chase and Bill talking about, things are going to hurt that haven't hurt in a really long time after, 60 minutes on that trail.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's all going to come down to, who can recover better. And that might favor our young people, right? That might favor Justin and Haley. They might wake up tomorrow feeling great. And, Matt might feel like he's 50 years old.
Yeah, I think the last thing I want to do after a 6-mile run on flat surface is a walking weighted lunge.
Right.
After what they went through on that trail.
Like, I think, sometimes you underestimate like how, if your legs feel bad, how that can affect a toe to bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just how much is like all that hill climbing, like how your hip flexors feel, like, are those going to be smoked, or are you going to be able to like recruit everything you need to do big sets? So.
Yeah. And then they go into the snatch event, the 3-bar sprint. I'm excited for that. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And then did we announce anything else for the day?
We have that bike and legless rope climb.
Oh, that's going to be brutal.
Mm-hmm.
I like that one because that's like at least an element that we talk about Matt, and like, do I think Matt is gonna he'll probably win the first 2 events tomorrow, I'd imagine. And then, but I think when you throw that bike and getting on and off the bike and things that can happen, and like, they were talking about how if you throw your bike down at the end, like your chain can come off. And so they had to ask, like, what do you do if your chain comes off? And they like had to tell them. So I think sometimes, even though that's not testing fitness, that is testing how smart you are with doing your equipment and like how quick you can transition. And so I like that there's at least something to test that could kind of, I personally get very bored with the same people winning over and over and over. Not that I don't like Matt Fraser, I do. But like, even when Rich was winning a bunch, he wasn't winning the first day. And so it still was like an exciting weekend.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a little bit of like the excitement of watching away. So I think sometimes having events like that are fun because there really are things that are unknown and that people probably haven't practiced that much.
And so what I kind of compare that one to is in Dubai, where they had to do the buy-in on the assault bike and then run the lap of the track. So I know that the rope climb is not running a lap of the track, but what is going to be the fatigue factor of the biking on not pavement, like on a rough surface, and then having to stop and go up a rope and back down 10 times? I think because a lot of people died after a couple rounds on that assault bike in Dubai. And so I can see that happening here where the bike is going to fatigue people and they're just going to be standing at the bottom of the rope trying to catch their breath to be able to go.
I think their quads are going to be smoked getting on that bike.
I also think you don't have as much of the opportunity. So like the regionals version of that workout with the run and the legless, I guess that was 2014 in Cincinnati for us. You could like run like kind of slow and you could like stretch your forearms and like do whatever you needed with your arms to help recover to do the rope climb again. But like when you have to get on and off a bike, you don't have that opportunity. So some of the people who might struggle a little bit more with some of that upper pulling, like that's going to be a hard event for Katrin. And especially if you can't recover or do what you feel like you need to with your forearms, like a run you can't really do that when you're trying to like turn on a bike and get on and off of it. So I feel like that's going to affect some people too.
And especially when you're riding out through grass and it's bouncing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's going to be rough.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
So I think overall, like, it was just awesome to see a live competition, not online, in person, watching these people get after it today. I enjoyed my whole day, and I cannot wait for tomorrow. I know we've attacked some programming here and there, but I'm excited for tomorrow. All that stuff that we were trying to analyze beforehand is out the window, and I'm just having fun watching everybody compete again. So any overall thoughts about the weekend and today?
I liked how you can like hear the athletes, like just like their breathing, or you know, like after they hit a lift, they're yes, you know, like I liked that aspect of it. I know it's different from the other years because we're not hearing the crowd, but I think it just kind of adds, it gives us something else, you know, this year.
Yeah, I agree. I also liked how Tia in her interview was talking about how, you know, she didn't really notice that there wasn't music or anything, but she said that because there's so few people there, she never realized how many people have to actually work to put on a competition because everyone else that's there is, you know, part of either the media team or the equipment team or judging or, you know, production and all that. So that was kind of cool for her to be like, gosh, there's like a lot of people here still. And none of them are cheering me on, but they're all, you know, trying to make this happen.
Any last thoughts, Jenny?
Oh, I thought it was a great day. Like you, I love competitive fitness, and I think it's fun to watch. And I think they're doing a good job with the streaming. Like I think that's been really pretty good. I don't know if you guys ever watch Rogue, so I watched a little bit of Rogue Iron Game. They have good people talking on there. I think the commentators are doing well. There's not really feed problems. And maybe out on the trail things got fuzzy, but like I think it's been really good. And I feel like for a while we didn't really know what you were going to get from CrossFit once they fired media and they didn't have stuff. And so I think it's been, and even like stage one, like I think everyone was really hoping they'd like sync videos up and you could kind of watch people go head to head, like things like that. So I think they've covered it well. They've done it well. It seems really well organized. So I'm excited to watch tomorrow.
Yeah, the world feed last year without direction from the announcers was really rough. This year, that has been all cleaned up.
Mm-hmm. It's been really good. Yep.
And 2 points I want to make from a media perspective. It is awesome to see Pat Sherwood back as an analyst on the Rogue Iron Games. That just made my heart full today because I love Pat Sherwood. And the second thing is Chase and Bill, now that they do their podcast, are much looser as analysts. And I think they're way more fun to listen to than they were even in the past. I think they have gone up a notch rather than the same old, same old.
Yeah, I thought it was really fun. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, good stuff. And so we'll just leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night and Sunday night with other recaps. And leave comments and like, subscribe, do all that stuff. And we'll address those questions if you put them in the comment section. And we'll see you tomorrow night on the Clydesdale After Dark.
Bye.
Bye.